Hello and welcome to Peer Revue, your weekly science guide. I'm Jimbo. I'm recording on Ngunnawal and Ngambri land. And I've got an audience of two today over in the production booth, which is very exciting. So you're probably asking, what are we going to be talking about today? Today we'll be talking about blind people using emojis, Australia's social cohesion, whether stress causes grey hair, and if mice are good substitutes for testing on over humans. Should we test on mice or on people? Writing inclusive posts on Facebook was an issue raised for me by someone at Griffin Hall, and it wasn't something that I'd thought about before. Having a program that reads text out loud can be useful for people with poor vision, but how does this software interpret emojis? To find out, my partner, Pauline, found a paper from the 2020s recommending best practice, and I tried to use text-to-speech on Facebook using the built-in iPhone software to see what it was like. The text-to-speech recognizer on the iPhone reads emojis like words. For example, do you like vermiculture with a worm emoji next to it reads, do you like vermiculture worm? That's my best text-to-speech impression. Repeats are all red, but can be skipped. There's a little button to skip. Same with links. So if you upload a link, it will read it out https ... And then it will just keep going for the whole thing, which is really annoying, but you can skip it. So here's an example of a text you might send at 2 a.m. Peach. Waving hand, my parents' death emoji, aren't home, winky face, winky face, winky face, winky face. As you can hear, there is repetition, and the point is to demonstrate how difficult it is to decipher the meaning of the message. Without being able to see it, you might not be able to get that the peach waving hand is supposed to mean peach slap, as in butt slapping a butt. So that is just trying to illustrate, trying to put you in the shoes of someone with poor vision. So what does the literature suggest is the best practice? So according to this 2020 paper by Gareth Tigwell and colleagues, best practice is using emojis at the end of sentences and not repeating them. They also recommend technology be updated to read emojis in context and automatically delete repeats. And they also recommend to not use emojis in your username. You don't have to delete emojis to be inclusive. So an example where emojis have been used really effectively was in a 2022 paper published in the Journal of American Medical Informatics Association Journal. And they found that emojis help people feel confident in their understanding of outcomes after recovering from prostate cancer. The participants mostly didn't have degrees and were not able to comprehend graphs to a high degree. So the use of emojis was pretty good at communicating the gist of what would have otherwise been communicated in a graph. But let's move on. Haha, face with tears of joy. But actually, it's more like frowning face, because Australia, we are looking at the devastating outcomes of our social cohesion report. This is a social science paper published in November last year, 2023. This report was conducted by an independent research institute, and it has ANU and Monash Uni's stamp of approval. This report shows social cohesion is the lowest it's been in 17 years since this type of reporting started. The first issue raised in the report is finances. Most of us agree the gap between rich and poor is too great. But did you know that being poor leads to feelings of disconnection and pessimism about Australia's future? 50 people took part in in-depth interviews. There were also thousands of surveys asked in this paper. One of the interviewees said there is a lack of community events. Building on concerns about inequality, the report went on to say that declining trust in government is correlated with low pride in Australian culture. So if you don't trust the government, you're probably not very proud about Australia's culture. One good note in the report is that people feel like they can bring up their concerns with their local member and have a say about the way their community should be governed. The author noted that despite the voice to Parliament being a, quote, difficult debate, it had ought to be a cherished example of our democratic system, end quote. If a lack of social cohesion causes stress, we're going to have a lot of people with grey hair in Australia, according to common myth. But is there any truth to the claim that stress causes grey hair? Robert Schmerling did a fantastic job of unpacking the evidence in a Harvard Health post. A 2020 study showed that when you stress rats out, their fur goes grey. When you get stressed, also, I'll tell you later how they stress the rats out. It's problematic. But anyway, when you get stressed, a lot changes in your body. So the researchers went one step further and tried to figure out what exactly was causing hair to grey. In humans and mice, stress leads to an increase in noradrenaline and another hormone released in the adrenal gland called corticosteroid. Stress also causes changes in immune function. So the authors had to try and isolate which one of these three factors was causing the fur of the mice to change colour. They found that by injecting noradrenaline under the skin of unstressed mice, they were able to make the mouse's fur turn grey. But there were no effects from just immune or corticosteroid changes. So noradrenaline is the culprit. But does this mean that stress caused your dad's hair to grey? No. The results of this study just mean that tying down mice, this is what they did, inflicting pain on them or psychologically distressing them causes mice to turn grey. Mice are quite different to humans. So the same might not be true for us. There are some people who turn grey without being stressed, which indicates there's a genetic factor to greying hair. Another limit to this research is that it's hard to simulate the same type of long-term human-type stress, like traffic jams and taxes and juggling finances. This means that the model can only be based on short-term stress and not chronic human-type stress. So we can't make any definitive conclusions yet. So just how good are mice as a model for humans? Not fantastic. Mice and humans' common ancestor existed around 65 million years ago. To put that in perspective, the first animal that evolved, Cavespharia, which looks kind of like a little plant ball, arrived on the scene around 600 million years ago. So that's like 10 times older than that little mammal that survived the dinosaur apocalypse and gave birth to dogs, whales, mice, and humans. So this is the common ancestor to all of the mammals. A lot of things can change in 60 million years. So you might ask, why would we perform experiments on animals to figure out how humans work? Well, Monica J. Justice and Pamiranda Dillon also asked the same question in their 2016 paper, and they admit that experiments on mice often don't replicate in humans. However, they say that scientists don't know statistics well enough, so their results might not be valid or replicable because of poor statistical analysis and not because of the fact that mice are really different to humans. I wrote an essay about this a few years ago, which you can go and check out on my website, livehowyouvant.wordpress.com. Don't at me because of the name. I made this website in my first year of uni, and I didn't know I would keep contributing to it. But there's a little post there written on whether or not painful experiments on animals is justified. Come back next week. We'll be talking about death. It's going to be great. We're going to be talking about why you can't come back to life.